Welcome everyone to the start of a new gameplay series on Heads Will Roll Reforged. I have so much I want to say about this game. I think it's very good, maybe even great, and incredibly underrated. I would say it's not nearly as popular as it probably deserves to be. Not that it's going to be super popular, but I just had never heard of it. I haven't seen people talk about it, and it's a game which it's essentially, to just say what it is mechanically, is the newer version of a Legionary's life. Now it's set in the medieval times versus that game Legionary's life was set obviously in the Roman Legionaries' time. Other than that though, this game is better in every way. It has a deeper, more rich inventory system. It has, I would say, a better story. Combat mechanics are almost identical. For those of you who didn't play a Legionary's Life, this game is a turn-based RPG which focuses on two settings. It's kind of like your strategy and tactical thing, a typical way of breaking these things up, where you're spending some time, quote unquote, at camp or whatever it is, where you train, you increase your skills. Let me just generate a random character here for a second so we can see what the skills and attribute set looks like. Yeah, so you'll be trying to level up all your different physical attributes, gaining weapon skills, stuff like that during the camp, and also doing little quests. And those take you from the strategy map, which is basically just, this is, if you know Rule the Waves, which you probably do if you're familiar with my channel, it basically takes you from the strategy map to the tactical map. And in the quests, or definitely during the main storyline, you'll be also in combat. Medieval combat, swords, maces, axes, or polearms are the four categories of weapons. So yeah, you do equip the weapon of your choice. It has damage. There's different attacks for each one, different skills. So there's a lot in this game, and I this is like my 6th time recording it because I need to try to say this as concisely as possible so we can get into the game in a reasonable amount of time. Let me just say it this way. It's fun. It's a good game. Now, story-wise, it hits pretty well. And yeah, so what are we going to do? Let's just roll a random character. Let me also start off with just an overview of a little bit of tutorializing. When you start to play your first game, I recommend normal. Note that I am right now level 135, which is insane. I only got to 135 as of yesterday. I was at level 61 yesterday. I finished a big run, which gave me as many points. It was a very successful run, and yet, despite having been 61 and jumping all the way to level 135, and yet I have never completed a run successfully. Every time my run has ended, it has been because I have died. So this just shows you that this game is brutal. And I've embraced the RNG and dying. It's something that I'm slowly opening myself up to more. It's just being okay with losing. And this is a great game because it has a nice progression system, which we see here. So the cool thing is, every time you play on Heads Will Roll mode, this is the only one where you progress, but you slowly start to level up the amount of points you have, which you can use to generate your new character. I think this is somewhat similar to what Legionary's Life was. But if you just go in, die, it doesn't matter. I actually did my last practice recording, which is going to be tossed, but I went in and I literally died in the first combat. I got extremely unlucky. I have recording proof of how unlucky it was, but I didn't like the way that one came off. It took me too long to get into the game, so we're trying it again. Anyway, so this progression system, it allows you to slowly get better. You never feel like a death is completely useless because you're always adding points to the next character. And there's tons of builds in this game too. So let me quickly not do a random character just so we can look at all the different weapons. We have our swords, then our axes, then our maces, and then our polearms. So you can do different builds. Your weapon, your melee skills are weapon independent, but there's talents that you get, and those are weapon type dependent, I should say. Swords versus whatever. So you can actually start building a character who's good at maces or who's good at axes. Those are the two that I most prefer. And I actually did a polearm run already. I experimented with a lot of these things, and it's fun to experiment, and you can you learn a lot about the game doing this too. So anyway, I think this game is easy to play, easy to pick up and play, but it's got a surprising amount of depth. Not like it's no Aurora 4X, but it's got enough depth to keep you busy for a while, learning all the little tricks of the trade. Okay, now saying all that, you can see that our character has 2480 points. When I roll randomly, I get maybe like 5 attribute points, a couple weapons. Maybe I'll get up to virtue of like 50. But what I can do here is all to max, and look at that. I'm at 8s across the board, 5, 5, 3, 0. This is like, and by the way, after 5 points in an attribute, it goes from a cost of 10 to go up. So we can see that going from 4 to 5 in strength will take us down to 305, but the next one will take us down to 255 because it's now. So look at how many points we're spending on all these attributes. It just shows you that once you level up, you really start with a much better character, and a lot of the battle in this game is managing your time well when you're at camp so that you can level up your attributes so you can be competitive in the next round of fighting. Okay, but we will start this game as you will start it if you decide to play, which is rolling randomly, because at first you actually have less points than you will get by rolling randomly, so it's actually much preferable to do it this way. And note that actually the virtue you get from your random rolls here is significant. Anyway, I mean, just getting some points in virtue is nice. And that's a whole nother thing. There's a story side of this where you can choose to play as the good person, the bad person, and your virtue goes up or down accordingly. I actually think that I think it's too easy to be unvirtuous, and a lot of quests incentivize you to be not virtuous, but I don't know. It seems like yeah. Anyway. Okay, so let's jump to the game. We have Brigand's Gauntlet here, which is not going to be very useful for us. I don't use thrown daggers. I really don't even use crossbows, which is probably my fault. One day I'll get into it. Maybe we'll experiment it. I hope that I play this, we die, and we restart, and make this a very long-lasting series, because I've had a ton of fun with this game. Okay, let's just proceed with whatever we got here. Now, the next thing is the story. I don't want to spend too much time in the first video going through all the story. So let me just say this. I'm going to read through, or try to blow through as quickly as possible, the introduction to story. After this, we're going to hit control to skip the story in every subsequent playthrough. I'm expecting, because we rolled random and we're starting with pretty garbage stats, we may not survive very long. Like I said, the last take I did, the 5th take, was literally surviving only until the first battle. Anyway, let's just read through this, and then I won't read through things when they show up a second time, when we're playing as another character. A breakout of yet another war between England and France was barely a surprise to anyone. The rivalry between the two kingdoms has lasted for more than a century, and small but regular armed conflicts have become commonplace for them. This war seemed to many to be an ordinary event, but the English king had other plans. This time he had no interest in lesser goals and aimed as high as to ascend to the throne of France itself, using its ongoing dynasty crisis as a casus belli. War preparations started by Edward III have surpassed any of his past military campaigns. Understanding the scope of his ambitions, the King of England did not delude himself. The war that he was about to embark on was going to be the greatest in history, and for an undertaking like that, a proper army was in order. The king began gathering forces long before declaring the war. Long negotiations and uncounted secret agreements bolstered the royal army with numerous allies, as well as mercenaries from all over Europe. The core of his forces, as it has always been, was constituted by the best of England's chivalry, eagerly awaiting their chance to finally outshine the French chevalier and claim the laurels of the best in the world. Now, side note, I don't know how to say this word. Chevaliers, chevalier, I don't know. French is a dead language anyways, right? Nobody knows how to say these things. For the honorable knights, this coming war was also an opportunity to amass wealth off its spoils and bask in the glory of victorious battle. You too ended up among the ranks of the king's countless soldiers, but unlike the knights and mercenaries eagerly enlisting out of their own will, you, a peasant son, did not have much of a choice, as besides professional warriors, the army also required those to do its dirty work, both in the meaning of digging ditches and being able to give up their lives for dirt cheap. By royal decree, a militia force was drafted from the free folk. Many wealthier people were able to bribe their way out of service, but you, coming from a poor family, had no such opportunity. And thus you received a royal gift for your 18th birthday, an unexpected journey to the shores of France. Weapon in hand, you suddenly find yourself treading on unfriendly soil. You wonder whether you will ever see your home again. Woo! Prologue, a journey begins, Castle Dunkirk, northern France. Okay, here we go, the tutorial-ish type stuff, saying basically, and I think that this is partly true, you really should not go to be a hero, and I would actually say go ahead and be a hero, and just get yourself killed. It's fine. It's actually fun to learn that way in this game. I mean, this is very un-Tortuga-like to be so okay with dying, but feel like that's the way you have to be in this game. Anyway, soon you will embark on your first adventure. Before you do, we have to warn you, not all risks are worth taking, and not all fights are worth fighting. Blindly charging forward without considering the circumstances and consequences, the fastest way to get yourself killed. Which, Tortuga says, is fine. Go ahead and choose whatever you want. Now, it says here, and I strongly disagree, your answers will never be right or wrong. I disagree. In this game, that's not true. There are definitely some choices which are right and some which are wrong. You will be punished for some things. You will die in some cases. So, in general, it's true, though. I don't want to nitpick too much. This game does a very good job of balancing all your things. Generally, it's going to be okay. This is going to be like your thief type thing where, you're going to lose virtue and you're going to lose the relationship with these people, but you're also going to gain a lot of stuff. And it's pretty well balanced where you're on the knife's edge about whether to do it every time. So don't go on dangerous endeavors if you're not confident in your success, or, as Tortuga says, go ahead and do it. And you'll find out whether or not you are strong enough to overcome it. Some quests will fail. Some characters you meet will grow to hate or despise you. Don't let these things bother you too much. Yes, your real goal is to make it to the end in one piece. Maybe Tortuga shouldn't be giving advice, since he has never done that. All right, and then manage your time well. And here we go. We get our 55 florins as our salary. And we don't have any prestige, so we don't get any additional money from that. And here we are. This is the strategic map. Thankfully, we made it only after 10 minutes of rambling on. So we're doing okay. Now, the main thing is we're going to want to train up some stats. We want to try to get a little bit better before combat. I would like to survive my first combat if at all possible. Now, once we have trained, we're going to gain fatigue. And after a certain amount of training, we can show this off. Let's get a little bit of endurance, a little bit of coordination. We're going to want some strength. And now you can see our character is on last legs, which is tier 4 of tiredness or fatigue out of 5. What we'll need to do then is go and do something here. We can hang out, which is going to drop our fatigue a bit. We can pray, which generally increases your virtue, but if you do it... Oh my gosh. The Lord has heard my prayers. This has never happened to me. This is a miracle. Literally in the game, the mechanic is a miracle. And I've never had a miracle. It's a miracle that I had a miracle. The Lord has heard my prayers. Fatigue recovery has increased. That's insane. So I suppose we got more fatigue recovery from that particular prayer session. There is and I didn't look at this at all. I'll go back to our character screen. We do have a civic talent point. We're already a musician, which means if we use a lute, we'll be better at it. There's also a man of faith, which doubles the chance of miracles occurring when performing religious actions. I have never taken man of faith because I had never seen a miracle before, and I figured double of nearly nothing is still nearly nothing. Now my eyes have been opened. Maybe man of faith is actually worth it, because getting the extra fatigue recovery, it's all about time management, right? If you want to make your character more efficient, you just have to find ways to basically speed up your fatigue recovery so you can do more training. Because the amount of time you spend training is fixed, but the amount of time you spend recovering fatigue is variable depending on a lot of things. So let's see. Hang out is normally my way of getting fatigue recovered. One thing we can also do is we can do solo practice to upgrade our melee weapon skill. You'll notice that different things have different amount of fatigue that you incur. The workouts, I think, are all the same. You can see on the right-hand side, lightly exhausting, lightly exhausting, lightly exhausting, even craftsmanship. Solo practice is very exhausting. Sparring is moderately exhausting. Same with training. And then same thing, solo is heavy, very exhausting, and training is moderately exhausting. So we can see solo practice here. I'm not even sure do we have enough. Yeah, that took us almost from nothing to almost all the way full. But it's worth it. Now, we did get, or did we get a... Am I crazy? No, we don't have a weapons talent point yet. These are very simple trees. Reduce the amount of stamina for the primary attack, stamina for secondary attack, 5% hit chance, and then a whole bunch of things, including another bonus to hit 5%, I think. Bypass some shields or armor by 5%, increase damage to the shield, bleed, or this is a good one actually, lowers stamina consumption of both primary and secondary by additional 1. That's very good. So you can see that the skill tree, it's not like you're going to spend a lot of points. You'll spend as many points as you can, but you're not really held back by the skill tree. Just because you don't have enough weapon talent points doesn't really mean you're going to be that much worse of a fighter. It is nice because everything about this is, probability based. You want to get to be as good as you can, which increases your chances of surviving. Anyway, let's go back and pray again. Okay, and this is what I was hoping to see. Well, not really hoping, but wanted to explain at least. Here's a good example of a double-edged sword. We prayed and our virtue increased by 1, which is sometimes what praying will do. Note that praying reduces your fatigue by less than hanging around, but you have this added benefit of virtue. However, you also have this drawback that if you pray too often, this withdrawal causes you to lose reputation with the soldiers. So it's just a perfect example of how everything in this game is a, a trade-off. Well, a lot of things are. I mean, there's some things where you do get just generally better. One thing we can show off is trade. So right now in my inventory, I have a short sword, which is good. I can equip that. Here's another idea of trade-off. Our attributes right now, I don't know where we're at, like 3 strength, 2 agility, something like that. Even equipping equipment is going to be a trade-off. Do we really want to equip this light leather gorget to protect our neck? And note that we can have 4 different locations, head, neck, body, or limbs that we want to protect or that could be hit. So we armor those, and then, generally like the neck is the hardest to hit, head is generally the second hardest to hit, limbs third, and then body's the easiest. But body's also going to be the one generally that's most well armored. So, this is more considerations of the game because it's very deep, you can play and just not really think about these things too much, but having played it enough, I feel like there's a lot of interesting mechanics that you start to pick away at. Now, what I wanted to say about this is that the endurance penalty of only 1, in my opinion, still makes this neck armor not worth putting on. That's crazy, right? But we're not going to wear just neck armor for a penalty of 1 endurance, especially because our endurance right now is pretty garbage. I am going to keep it though because there are prestige checks here and there, and it would be good to have the extra 3 prestige we could just put on quickly and then take it off so that we're not penalized by endurance in case we get into a situation like a quest or a spontaneous like dialogue box which has an endurance check involved within it. Okay, alright, so there we go. These are trinkets, by the way. We have 3. These are very valuable. You're going to be fighting for these 3 spots. Right now we only have, well, I guess we can technically put this as well. This is not a trinket. Okay, yeah, so we only have this dice. And this is another thing. Okay, so not only does it give us +1 agility, which we'll be grateful for, but now we get an unfair advantage when playing dice with people, which means we're more likely to win money. Playing dice, also another way to do fatigue recovery. And because we have that benefit, we'll probably end up playing dice a lot more. This one also gives us an additional +2 agility. We're basically being set up well for an agility build. So here's our short sword, damage 6, costs 10 stamina to do the normal attack, which is sword slash. It costs 14 to do special attacks like lunge or weak spot. It has length of 1. There is length and reach advantage in this. The longer your weapon, the harder it is for the enemy to hit you, and slightly easier for you to hit the enemy. So the higher, further length is an advantage as well. Lots of little, things you can try to micromanage here. But since the short sword itself is not an agility-focused weapon, but there's an S-stock in here somewhere. There's other swords, especially the swords are usually agility-based. I don't know if there's any axe or mace which is agility based. I doubt it. It almost doesn't seem correct if there are. But swords certainly. Okay, we also have this Brigand's Gauntlet. We'll go ahead and put this on as well. We're not going to be using thrown daggers as already mentioned, but the extra 2 agility for free right now is just massive, where we barely have any at all. And you know what? This cheap improvised shield, which is pretty much garbage, but hey, the benefit of that is it has almost no stat penalties. We're going to buy this for 20. I want to leave a little bit of money. I really want this Commoner's Belt too. Actually, this is a good set of trinkets here. Rabbit's Foot, another good one, gives us some luck. Vitality is only hit points. Vitality is directly equal to hit points. So, in combat, you generally want to focus on strength, agility, endurance, and, well, everything but vitality. Coordination helps your fatigue recovery, or actually it's your stamina recovery. We'll see that all when we get into combat. Okay, so what else do I want? I wanted to show off buying wine, but I want to also now gamble since we have that. Let's go ahead and gamble. Okay, we won 1 florin. Woo! And if we had that rabbit's foot, you'd imagine that this... Oh, and look at gambling actually is really good at fatigue recovery. Now, having spent a bit of time in the camp, we gradually get to know various people, including making friends with several other young men drafted for the militia. All of you have quite a lot in common, including the fact that originating from poor families, you were forced to go to war without anything even remotely resembling decent weapons or armor. Sorry about misreading that version. One of the guys, going by the name of Bartholomew, and having a rather shady past, suggests you fix this situation and presents you with a plan. His idea is to borrow the necessary equipment from someone who is not in such dire need as you, the guards of Castle Dunkirk that is towering above your camp. According to Bartholomew, the men guarding the castle are guards in name only. They have been drafted from the surrounding countryside just as the war started, and they can barely tell which side of the halberd goes towards the enemy. Security is as bad as it gets, so sneaking into one of the armories in the far tower should be a piece of cake. Everything else we'll figure out on site. Bartholomew claims he will take care of any locks we could encounter, so we just have to grab and carry away as much armor and weapons as we please. Several soldiers are rather impressed and willing to try. They already plan to pull it off this night. Now, I'm going to do something which I wouldn't normally do. I'm going to refuse this. I think it's a good quest to embark on. It does lower your virtue. So this is one of those that I think in general it's good. And by the way, Bartholomew, if you pass all the quest and actually finish it, he will become your friend, which is also a really cool thing. I didn't know that for the longest time, and I was also trying to do a virtuous playthrough, always, like for the first like maybe 5-6 playthroughs. So I kept refusing because you don't lose any virtue this way. Bartholomew seems displeased and promises you will remember this moment once you face ironclad French knights and armed to the teeth Flemish mercenaries. Before letting you go, he demands you keep your mouth shut, or else he will get back at you even from the grave should you let out their plan. Virtue increased by 5, reputation decreased by 2, and we still have the quest Castle Heights. Why is that? It's because if we want to, we can still go tattle on them by going to the watchtower. We're not going to do that though. We're not going to waste our time. Basically, we're going to spend our time training because we have combat looming in the near future. So let's get our strength up a little bit. Our endurance really ought to get that up as well, and we'll be gambling now that I know that we can win some coins. Oh, look at that. Lost 2. Doesn't really matter, right? Okay, we lost 3. The most important thing is that we are lowering our fatigue so we can train again. And I really want to do another solo practice, which is probably all we're going to be able to do for this session. For this period. Let's go ahead and gamble now. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2. Lost 1, and lost 4. Okay, so I think we basically came out even after all that. Another thing is, just I'm not going to read through this. I'm going to actually hold control, so you see on the top left that it skips. We'll read all about this more later, I think in the next playthrough. I'm not going to go through all the details now because I do want to get into combat, show that off before this episode comes to a close. So what else do we need to do? Did we get our fatigue back up? Almost. Let's maybe do a little bit of praying. Virtue increased by 1, and we're down to 0 there, which is good. But unfortunately, with a little bit of time, we really ought to eke out something more. So we'll do this. Then we'll try to gamble, and we lost 3 florins, and we're left with a little bit of fatigue. But it's time to go to the next event. So what do we have on our inventory? Let's equip our shield, and I think we'll leave that. We probably could have sold the Fletcher's tools. So what's our character look like? 4, 5, 2, 1, 0, 1. 3 melee, that's not bad. We didn't even use our civic talent. I'm not expecting that this playthrough goes the distance, but let's choose Colossus. It's a good one to pick up for your first one. It gives you, every 3 times you train Vitality, it gives you 1 strength as well. They probably did that. It's a good perk because you don't usually, at least in my opinion, I don't usually train Vitality, but now you have an incentive to do so. Okay, after spending about a week at Castle Dunkirk, the army eventually begins its march to the southwest. Your regiment has been assigned to the advance guard led by the king's son, Edward of Woodstock, the Prince. With about half a day's march separating him from the main force, Edward's main goal is to scout ahead and make sure there are no major French reinforcements in sight. Arriving at Cambrai, you see a large French convoy with supplies that is entering through the main gates. The town obviously has not been prepared to handle a long siege yet, and stands vulnerable. The young prince, eager to prove himself to his father, chooses a daring move, to try and take the city by charging through the yet open gates. Time is of the essence, so Edward leads the attack immediately. Alright, so this is our first battle. I don't think we need to set up anything else, we'll just proceed. Concealed by the forest surrounding Cambrai, the English managed to get close enough to catch the defenders by surprise. The prince spearheads the cavalry charge forward, crushing everything under them and breaking into the city. You and your fellow militiamen try to follow in their tracks as fast as you can, but the difference in speed is just too great. By the time you have finally got to the gates, there is already a large group of enemy soldiers, guards, and militiamen gathering to block your way. And here we go, combat. So, very soon you will have to shed your first blood, but before you do this, it would be wise to get acquainted with the main principles of the combat system, and I would say, very familiar with them at this point. So, this is a Legionary's life. Everyone who's played that game is going to see this and know exactly what they're looking at. But I'll just kind of walk through this and, just talking about the things I'm doing, and we'll slowly get acquainted with it together. So, in the very first move, he has very high stamina. I also have a very high stamina, which makes us both pretty hard to hit. So I'm going to move to defensive stance because it's very unlikely I'm going to hit him anyway. But one thing which is not impacted by your stance is feint. And we have a 50% chance here. Let's also compare strength. He has strength of 2 and I have strength of 5 or something. 4. That might give us a small advantage on shield. Yeah, so we have a 2/3 chance of actually doing something useful with our shield. Note, by the way, that we actually start with 18 fatigue out of 39 because we didn't get fully rested. That's why it's important to try to rest up before combat. Anyways, we'll try a shield bash here. It seems like the best thing for us to try to do. And we succeeded. Well, there was a 2/3 chance, so... What are the odds of a 67% chance landing? I don't know. Alright, so I didn't even see what he did, but I think he swung and missed or something. Who knows? That took a little bit of stamina from us. We're still at 29. This guy's down to 12. Now, at this point, we'll see that the percentages are much, much higher. His stamina is a lot lower, and that's going to allow us to attack. So I'll switch over to a balance so I actually have more of a chance to hit. Ideally, we would go for the head or neck, but the percentage chance is still, in my opinion, too low. Also, this guy actually happens to be wearing a rusty ancient helm. He also has a shield, but the shield is only same as mine, by the way, 35% shield cover, which means it's only a 1/3 chance he's going to block. No, we don't even have... There's nothing for us to do other than go for probably the head here. Now note, if I look at this, there's a little bit less damage if we go for the limbs, and they're lower percentage. The benefit of this is in what you expect is a longer fight. There's a fatigue impact to choosing the limbs. So if you want to just try to wear them out by getting them tired, it's a very effective strategy, but it is a long-term strategy. I don't think that this guy's going to be around long enough to use that, and he blocked the shield, of course. Thankfully, it looks like balanced stance plus the amount of stamina we still had, which is a big impact on your their 2-hit against you, was enough that they still missed. Or maybe he just rolled really poorly. But with 3 stamina, this guy should be very easy to hit. Oh god. And talk about this in a second. Okay, he did recover. We're going to do recover as well, actually. What happens is every now and then this game bogs. I don't know why, and it's not doing it now, of course, but once it bogs, if you click on something, it still registers your click. But when the game bogs to me, I don't think I've clicked this, so I click this again, and then it registers as a click on the next screen, which ends up being an attack, which I didn't actually want to do. Anyways, what we see here is I'm now winded, so I've gone to fatigue level 2, and I want to respite that. In normal difficulty, by the way, if you don't do heads will roll difficulty, you have unlimited respite, so you can really play the long-term game by just kind of staying behind your shield and respiting to get all your fatigue back. The enemy will not abuse that the same way, so it's one way to kind of cheese your way to longer-term success. But again, getting further on any difficulty but heads will roll does not progress your profile. So what I'm going to do here is switch over to defensive, and I'm going to recover first so that I have less of a chance of being hit. He also went with recovery, and now I'm going to do a respite, which I think will lower me... Oh, I only have 4 fatigue for that. That is not a lot. I think I'll recover again. Just to... I know he's coming at me. Yeah, there it is. Oh, okay. So he actually hit me with the same thing. That's kind of the thing I wanted to do to him, but... Actually, I want to go for his body at this point, but let me recover one more time. Now, if you hit recover or... respite too many times in a row, you actually get -1 reputation from soldiers for being a coward, which is funny. It's also, if you choose to cower behind your shield, you also get labeled a coward, -1 reputation. So it's just something to keep in mind. Don't Don't do it indefinitely. But now that he's down on low, we're going to have a high percent chance to hit. I think we'll go with this. Only a 1/3 chance he blocks with a shield, so of course he's done it twice in a row. He still has... I'm going to go ahead and recover. He did 2. He has the same shield. Yeah, okay. Let's also respite. It only gives us 4 fatigue, which is not a whole lot, but... Okay, thankfully he missed. I may even still do another respite. Is that going to get us down there? No. He recovered back up, which means that we're just going to recover as well. Waiting for him to do something. Okay, he did a shield bash, which actually takes quite a lot of fatigue. Is it? Yeah, so there's a miss penalty of 5. I think that's 5 extra fatigue if you miss, or just 5 extra stamina. We could actually shield bash him, so it's funny that he tried to do that to us because we have the higher strength. Let's go ahead. Oh yeah, 100% chances I like to see. In fact, when you have 100% chance, might as well go back to defensive. And then go for the body. What is 1/3 to the 3rd power? It's like a 3% chance of blocking with the shield 3 times, but he's done it. The madman, he's done it. Look I'm going to mention the RNG, but I actually don't mind it. I mean, I think that this is actually my recording luck. Tortuga's like, when he's recording luck, it just happens to be awful. It's something I can't explain, but it's like, just true. It's really true. Now, I'm not counting, and I don't know what the percent chances are. The fact that this guy's missed a fair few amount of times, I don't know if that would be... It's probably the expected, but, you know, I don't know the full percentages, as I said. Why don't we go ahead and take a swing at the head? No, 20% chance to get to the armor. Could go for the neck if I wanted to go. So he only has 1 right now, which means that we might as well go to offensive stance, because he's not going to be able to do anything against us to, like, try to hit us. Alright, finally got through. We hit his neck, he's now bleeding, which means that every 1 turn, he's going to take a little bit of extra damage. For 1 more turn. He's still at only 5, so we can probably go and swing again. You know, another neck hit might kill him. And he blocked with the shield. Of course he did. Alright, well, let's go ahead and recover at this point. He's going to recover. We'll play this recover game together. Failed that one. We blocked our shield, thankfully. We'll respite here as well. Alright, so we made it to round 20. This guy's going to escape if we don't kill him soon. Let's go for the body. Okay, 1 more hit. He dropped his helmet. He's slashing wildly. Alright, well, with only 6 health left, we can just go for an easier option here. Yeah, let's just go for the body. We got him. Split his chest open. And we have eliminated our first person, at least on, the recording side of things. Okay, the bad news is, and this is one thing I strongly dislike about this game, there's a real disadvantage sometimes to killing somebody because a new person who's completely fresh steps up. So it's not like entirely unfair that this idea would, because it could happen in battle too, but the problem is it does actually benefit you to know exactly the round that everything ends and don't kill somebody until right before then, which is kind of what I end up doing because it does stop for us on round 24, which means we only have to survive 1 round against this guy. I'll just go to defense here, and although recover would benefit me more, I'm going to go ahead and do respite because I don't think he'll kill us in 1 hit. In fact, we blocked with our shield, which is fantastic. Now this is just going to be another respite for us because this is the end. We're not going to be able to... Wait. Okay, I stand corrected. I thought that would be it. This must be it now. There it is. Unable to sustain your attack, the enemies are slowly giving in and soon begin a hasty retreat. With a pause in the action, you take a look around and see several bodies of your dead foes. Looting, especially during active combat, is generally frowned upon in the army. This, however, does not deter many soldiers, predominantly from poorer backgrounds, from pillaging the rivals' corpses. Their motives are easy to understand. In war, even a single piece of good equipment can be the difference between life and death. A small pause. Okay, so If we don't search, it does allow us to recover our fatigue, which would be useful. But I think early on in a randomly generated character, we're going to be much better off actually searching and grabbing their very weak equipment. So we got working gloves, which is pretty good. I mean, if we want to do craftsman type stuff. And maybe even better, we got this poor man's shield, which is 10 higher durability and 10 higher shield coverage than the one we currently have. Which, by the way, is down to only 8 durability. So it's actually a lot more than that. And note that it doesn't have any additional attribute penalties. So we definitely want to get this. And we could even equip it, which we might as well do. But actually, this is the perfect place for us to call the very first video to a close. I would like to, especially if there's any interest of it on the channel. I'd like to kind of play this for a while and see the different storylines. There's even like romance options, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, I mean, they just, yeah, there's a lot in this game. I haven't been able to unpack nearly enough of it in one episode, but we'll call it to a close here. So anyways, all I was going to say is if you wouldn't mind pressing the like button or giving it a thumbs up, we'll try to get this a little bit more visible on YouTube, and then I won't ask that again for the rest of the series. We'll just have a good time together. Hope you enjoyed what you saw here. We'll be back for more. I'll try to tutorialize things, and if you have any questions or comments, I feel like I've gotten very comfortable at playing the game, and hopefully I can show that off in the upcoming episodes. Till the next one, thanks for watching, and take care.